Hey, y'all, welcome back to the Don't Mom Alone podcast. I'm your host, Heather McFadden, and this is the place where I get to walk alongside you and connect you with people and resources so you know that you don't mom alone. And in this episode number 472, I'm welcoming to the show comedian Dustin Nickerson.
I do agree with your sentiment that our guys making connections, and that to me is not just a struggle of dads. That's a struggle of years of a culture of masculinity failing men. That it's weak to show feelings and emotions, that it's lame to want to have a relationship with another male friend, to share about your feelings and how you're doing and to make human connections.
Not only is Dustin a comedian, he is an author and a podcaster. He and his wife, Melissa, co-hosts the podcast Don't Make Me Come Back There, which I gave a different title at the end of my episode accidentally. He was so gracious. In their show, they try to laugh at and also talk through the tough parts of parenting. And so I asked him today about what it's like to try to balance family, work, travel, and for dads to create meaningful connections and friendships, and how we as moms can help our husbands, not dad alone. He claims over and over throughout this episode he is not the dad expert, but I appreciate him giving his perspective and reminding us that the more busy we get with family and work, it's harder to lean in and make those relationships a priority. So it does help if we as women encourage our husbands. Let's get right to it. Here we go. Dustin, welcome to the Don't Mom Alone podcast.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks for having me. I have indeed never mommed alone.
You haven't.
So,
Not one day.
No, I meet the qualifications of this immediately. I've fulfilled every requirement that's asked from this show title.
You know that the show used to be called God-Centered Mom? Let that sit on you a little bit.
I've also never been a God-centered mom. So, and God-centered dad, I think it depends on the day.
Right? It's a weighty title. But here's the deal. You are doing the coolest thing, and I saw it on the Instagram in my not so creepy but creepy way. I just kind of looked at you up on the internet, is that you are at the Netflix is a joke thing deal.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah,
so cool.
It's wild. It's like 2 weeks. This is the second time they've done it, and it's like this giant just party for comedians. And then comedy's in such a boom right now too that it's like, I mean, none of this is meant to be name droppy, but like,
do it.
So yesterday I did. So my show was Sunday. Like, I've been up here for a week. Mel, my lovely wife, she's like, I want to just go to a show for Mother's Day. So we came up last week and we saw the big show at the Bowl, which was Seinfeld, Gaffigan, Nate Bargatze, and Sebastian Maniscalco. So that was the start of the festival. And we were just like, Nate's like my mentor, and I know Nate pretty well. So that was like that kind of, we hung out with him. But that was just going to a show. And then we came up Sunday for my show, which was great. I mean, a good turnout. It was fun hanging, everything. But it's smaller scale compared to everything else. That's what's fun. There's like these big scales, small scale. And then I got an invite. So Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer did a big 5K. Well, really, Leanne, Bert's wife. That's a very classic dynamic with those two. Bert even said it on stage. He said to Leanne, like, hey, I want to do a 5K. And then Leanne made it happen. And it was at the Rose Bowl. It was crazy. Like, as a college football fan, it's unbelievable. So we go and we do, we're in like the VIP heat or whatever. And I know there's going to be like, some comedians and stuff there, but we're just like, I'm like, we're getting to the starting line and there's some cameras. And I was like, oh, is that Jelly Roll?
Stop. I saw Leanne Morgan saw Jelly Roll. She got her picture with him. And I was like,
he was just, I ran a 5K with him.
That's crazy.
So it was, and then last night you go and hang out at the Comedy Store afterwards. A friend of mine was doing a show, and then it's the same thing. It's every big comedian in the world, and like Post Malone's there. It's just crazy because it's LA and it's comedy. And then my last show is tonight, and this is a big fundraiser that the catcher for the Dodgers, Will Smith, the other Will Smith, is doing. And that's crazy too, because it's like the lineup is like Will Ferrell's going to be there and stuff. And
Yeah.
that's just like but the funny thing, and Mel and I talk about this a lot, that's part of our lives. But the reality of our life is the return to home. Like we'll do a red carpet tonight, but who we really are is the pickup and drop off line. That's who we really are. And I like the balance. But we don't live in LA. We just come, we do our little 4 or 5 days, our week of little pretending to be celebrities, and then we head back to who we really are down in San Diego to
Real.
To go to Vaughn's and to and to help a tough little 10-year-old with her math homework.
Ugh, that is real. That is real. And as we're like,
well, I can't do it anymore. Fourth grade, I was like, I'm out. I can't do it anymore. Thankfully, Mel's a better student than me.
It's like the dragging across the finish line at the end and like the tears of, I know you're so done. I'm so done. Your teachers are so done. Everybody's done.
Yes.
And you got it. The worst stuff is at the end, like the hardest, like you've been climbing 100%. To this moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And you try to like make them be like, oh, it's really important. And it's not at this stage of the year. It's like, really not. It's not. But
you're like, that calculator, it's going to really help you out in the future. But today, you need to know 8 times 6 like that.
I know.
Did it come to your head when I said 8 times 6?
No. I'm a writer. I don't need these numbers in my life.
Okay. I do want to go back to the Netflix as a joke, because my question that my brain thought of this morning as I was curling this hair was, okay, I thought of Finding Nemo in the scene where the clownfish is there and they're like, tell a joke. And you have that moment as a comedian where people are like, be funny. When comedians hang out, is it like chill? Like everyone's like, pressure's off. We all know we're funny. Or is it the opposite where it's like, no, I got to show up with my best material to let them know I'm legit?
There's no material. As a matter of fact, if you start doing material, that's the only thing that'll upset us.
Okay.
If we get a sense that you're like doing a bit or you're trying a new bit on us, we'll be like, shut it down. Comedians are the most fun people to hang out with. There's nothing to prove, but it is just people who are professionally funny and are very good at it. So it can just be, it's a lot of riffing. It's a lot of people just sitting around and whatever topic comes up, just being as funny as they can on it. So, it's
not like in a performative way, just in a like, this is what we like.
No.
Yeah, this is what we like.
Usually, usually in kind of like a bust and chops type way, or there's a lot of making fun of. And that, like, the green rooms and the hangs with comics are, they're as wonderful as you'd want them to be. And it's important that audio from those never get leaked.
As y'all heard in the Friday episode of Sidetracked, me share how fantastic of a dad I had, and who's no longer with us, I wanted to give you an idea for a great gift for the dads in your life, because there are so many stories that I still don't know that my dad took with him to heaven, and I wish I had chronicled. And so if you have a dad, a father-in-law, your own husband, maybe even your brother, that you want to capture their stories, from hilarious to heartfelt, tear-jerking, retelling things that bring him joy, go check out Storyworth. Because with Storyworth, every week, they will email your loved one, whoever you pick, a thought-provoking question that you get to help pick. And there were so many interesting ones. I was going to read a couple to you. What is one of the most selfless things you've done in your life? Something they may not brag about, but you might want to know. What's your best party trick? Did you have a car in high school? What advice do you wish you had taken from your parents? And it goes on and on and on. Those are just a few examples. And Storyworth makes writing the writing process a breeze, because all they need to do is respond to the email with their story. Whether they send back a sentence or something longer, it doesn't matter. You'll be emailed a copy of your loved one's response as they're submitted over the course of the year. So you get to enjoy their retelling ongoing every week, and be surprised by stories you may have never heard before. After that year of fun, Storyworth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book that you'll be able to share and revisit for generations to come. You can even keep a copy of the book for yourself. Families love Storyworth. That's why it has more than 25,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot, with millions of stories preserved since they were founded over 10 years ago. So give all the fathers in your life a unique, heartfelt gift that you'll cherish for years. Storyworth. Right now, save $10 on your first purchase when you go to storyworth.com/DMA. That's Storyworth, STORYWORTH.com/DMA to save $10 on your first purchase. Okay, so let's get to the dad stuff. All right?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Since you're here to represent, we've got Father's Day coming up. I'm talking all the time with moms about mom community and don't do this alone, and the isolation tendency that we all experienced during COVID, but moms were already experiencing it with a newborn. Do dads, I get the sense that dads these days, and here's the deal, I might get feminists calling me and getting mad at me. I feel like compared to our dads or the granddads, we have swung the other way, where now both people can be working, both parents can be working full-time jobs. I feel like there's just a lot on the male plate and not a lot of outlets, or at least I'm observing that in the family friends we have. I don't see them choosing to go play golf for hours. I don't see them choosing those things, or hanging out with guy friends. Maybe that's just our community, but it makes me kind of nervous. Are these dads getting their own community, or is it work, family, sleep?
That's an interesting observation. I think there's some real truth to that. I mean, I have a hard time speaking broadly on behalf of dads in
You
the
don't want to
sense that I
represent
have
all the dads?
Yeah, and I have such a different schedule.
Truth. Yeah.
My week to week schedule is usually around a Thursday or Friday. I leave town, but not in the old school way. I come back. I'm I leave. And I come home around a Sunday, Monday, depending on the schedule. But then when I'm home. I do I intentionally load all my work. It's like I'm doing this now, or while I'm in a hotel away from my family. I stack as much of my work and writing and stuff for when I'm gone, so that I can come home and just be present. And for 4 days a week, I'm the most involved dad that you've ever seen. I do agree with your sentiment that our guys making connections, and that to me is not just a struggle of dads. That's a struggle of years of a culture of masculinity failing men. That it's weak to show feelings and emotions, that it's lame to want to have a relationship with another male friend, to share about your feelings and how you're doing, and to make human connections. And listen, men have a higher suicide rate than women for these type reasons. They have a higher alcoholism rate for these type reasons, a higher depression. These men do have all the same, no, I should say, have all the complexities, a different set of complexities, but also have a society pressed on them, mostly from, how women often judge, I'm speaking of big generalities here, often judge the way women look more than men.
Yeah, we like to pick it apart. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And men do that to each other. What women need is other women to be like, you're beautiful and I love you and you're valuable and you're good enough. And what men need that too, but in that other regards of your feelings are valuable, what your dad did hurt you, and that's okay, and you're going to be okay, and it's okay to cry, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of the time it's our own gender making us insecure about it because of their own insecurities.
One of my sons goes to an all boys high school, and he said, he's like, Mom, they just prey on your weaknesses. Pray not hands together,
no.
like
Pray
a predator.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine if you're showing any sign of weakness, which we equate emotional vocabulary with weakness, like in being attuned to your emotions. We see that as weak,
Mm-hmm.
which actually can be a strength. Yeah, I can totally see how this is just like how men have interacted for a long time.
Yeah. And maybe it's old, just like evolutionary tribal type, like who's the alpha among
Yeah,
us
yeah.
type stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, you see it in person. You also see it on the internet, like, it's amazing how, like, like if you present a point of view that another man disagrees with, you're like a soy boy, to
Mhm.
use their terms. You're like, guys, relax. I'm sorry that you didn't get the hugs you needed, you know, and I hope that you go seek help on this, but this is not about me. This is about you and what you're going through.
Yeah.
So I also do think that to the dad stuff, I have a friend who just had their first child, and then I have a friend who I was hanging out with last night who their first baby's due in October. And I do the dad experience is a totally unique one
Yeah.
over the mother experience. And that I remember when our first kiddo was born, Joel, 17 years ago,
Oh, wow.
this Sunday, 17 years ago.
Oh.
I remember, yeah, he was born on Mother's Day.
Oh.
I remember being like, I wasn't prepared for this moment. Like, it didn't feel the way that I thought it would feel, or
Mhm.
that I almost had put some pressure on in this moment. And I love the kiddo, but you don't feel like the connection that mom does, because mom grew him.
Like, it's this feeling like if you didn't adopt, like feeling the movements, like I
Yeah.
feel like I was way more prepped than my husband.
Yes.
Like he had to like see the physical baby to be like, "Oh, this is a real
Yeah.
entity. This is a human being."
Yeah. I can't go to a movie tonight.
Yeah,
I
that we still tried, okay? We still tried.
Yeah.
We
Oh, I
took that
respect
poor
that.
baby on, like, overseas trips. I mean,
Oh,
we were
that's
trying to
awesome.
live the
Good for
life
you.
still. Yeah, it was not
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. But I do think that there are not a lot of, there's just not a lot of like dads that like talk about that.
Yeah,
It's, and if and have a moment, whether it's euphoric or confusing or depressing or sad or however you handle that moment, either way, whatever the feeling is you had in that moment, it didn't get told to anybody,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
It
And
stayed
your wife
inside.
at that yeah, exactly. And your wife and the mother of your kid at that point is not in a place where you're like, let me dump how I'm feeling, because she's like, hey, I just had a child. I'm in a bit of a state right now.
Yeah. No, and I remember, like, all of my feelings I was feeling the first night I was up all night, and my mom brought me
Mm-hmm.
breakfast that next morning, and I was just crying like, "Is this the rest of my life? I'm never gonna sleep the rest of my life." And then I was like, "Wait, she's not still waking up all night." So I had, like, this
Yeah.
projection. Did you feel like you could lean
Mm.
on your dad or, like, talk to him? Or, like, I feel like, yes, there's male to male friendship relationships, but then even your own dad, was it like, I wanna be like him or I don't wanna be like him? And just to bring up your trauma of your childhood. But
No, unfortunately, as close as I am to my dad, because I was raised by a single dad, we're very close,
okay.
but not that kind of close.
Mhm.
And I don't think he would even know what to say if I
Yeah.
did bring that up. And I unfortunately, especially when we first had kids, it was you were just kind of on your own in that regard. We're also really young too.
Yeah.
So I imagine when I was 22, like so already I didn't even have a fully formed brain at the
Yeah.
time. So
Now that you have, like, an almost 17-year-old, can you believe it? You're like, "Man, in 5 years. Wow."
yeah, I mean that's what I told him. I was like, I mean, I met your mom when I was your age. Like we started dating, which I mean I know is, uncommon, but it's a surreal experience for sure to just be like, oh, I remember what it feels like to be a 17-year-old. I don't remember what it feels like to be a 4-year-old or even like an 8 or 9-year-old, but I remember, a lot of days of my junior year in high school,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
so it's unfortunately I remember more of them than I want to. Yeah, I had some, thankfully, and this was in part just because we were in a church community. Like we definitely had some like older dads and mentor types who just sought it out, And I
Mm.
think that's kind of what I hope to do now. Like the conversation that I had with my friend who just had a kid, like it was like the week before the baby was doing. And I just told him what I wanted to wish I would have heard then,
Yeah.
which was, hey, don't put any pressure on yourself to feel a certain way in this moment. Feel however you feel. Don't feel shame about it if you don't feel excited enough. Don't feel, if you're scared, it's okay to be scared. Just feel, let your biology produce what it needs to produce. And I go and know that by the time we had our third child, I spent most of my time admiring my wife.
Mm.
And I wish I would have done that for the first two. You
Mm.
realize you're in that labor room not to support the child. You are supporting the child, but you're in the labor room to support your wife who's birthing the child.
Mm.
And so I was just kind of trying to tell him some of the things that I wish I would have heard. And thankfully they were not in particular. I know I'm talking about labor specifically right now, but there was such a flood of strange emotions for me at that time that nobody had told me what to expect or what I might feel, that I am trying to do that. Because there were, at least more so now, like I reflect on like when our kids were a little older, there were some dads dads throw these little nuggets at you
Yeah.
every once in a while, like, and you're
And
like,
you're
oh,
like
okay.
so starving. You're like, yes, take it in.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
no, please tell me more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome. And do you feel like, I know you have a show with your wife, a
mhm.
podcast. Have you found that there's not a lot of dad shows out there? Like, I know it's more of a comedy show, but you're at least talking about parenthood. And so have you found dads
Yeah,
like reach out?
yeah, some for sure. Yeah, and you try and be. I mean, again, it's unfortunately it's any of the times that we are talking about heavier things. Like we say, the podcast is called "Don't Make Me Come Back There." We say we're a funny podcast about family, but we're about family, which means there's heavy stuff that gets in there sometimes, and you do find more moms resonating with those episodes,
Hmm.
and that's okay. I mean, I know that there are stereotypes for a reason or whatever, and there are maybe just more moms overall that want to hear that kind of content. But I like to think that some of that heavier stuff, dads are just nodding along to. Maybe
Yeah.
they won't send an email or a DM about how much they appreciated that episode, but we've made such progress as men in this regard.
Mhm.
If even just considering where we're at with our dads, of just like the bar to be a father, it was so low that everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, you went to the park with your child?
Yeah.
You played
You s
tag
They're
with
at the
your
grocery
son?"
store. My husband's like, "You're such a good dad," because he has the kids, but I'm like, "I do this all the time." I mean, not moms these
Yeah,
days,
yeah,
they
exactly.
order whatever, Instacart. I mean, I used to
Yeah.
it's like the barefoot in the snow, uphill both ways, like,
Yes,
I'm like, "I used
yes.
to push a cart with 4 kids hanging off of it at the grocery
That's
store,"
hilarious.
you know?
Yeah, Mel had her years there. Mel, you know what's funny about Mel is she'll have her conveniences that she'll do, but the Instacart one or whatever, she just draws the line there. For whatever reason, she's like, "I'm putting on my headphones."
Yep.
And now our kids are older; they're all in school now. But she had her years walking through that Vons and Ralph's of just multiple kids hanging off each card. Can we get the big car one? You're like, no. You know how hard that thing is to turn.
It's so hard. It is so hard. Oh, man. Okay, so question.
Hmm.
If your wife is like, you know what? On the weekends, Dustin's on the road, and during the week, he's like doing the carpool thing, doing the like sports thing, doing the at home laundry thing. He has not hung out with his guy friends in a while. And she's like, you should really go hang out with your guy friends. Would that work for you? Or you'd be like, nah, Mel, I'm good. Like, what should moms do if they're seeing like their husbands aren't connected and they're not hanging out with dudes? Like, how could they foster that, or how do they even bring that up without making their husbands feel bad or making it awkward? Or should they just leave it
Right.
alone?
That's a great question. Again, I can't speak generally because I get my hang time on the road a lot
Oh, that's true.
because
Yeah.
I'll be out with a friend or I'll know somebody, and it's like I did that 5K yesterday with one of my best friends, and then we're like on the Rose Bowl, you're like, "Oh, I'm at work right now." There's the road life. Ray Romano has this old story about how sometimes the road life is so much easier than what your wife is doing at home or your husband or whatever it may be, and he'll be like his friend took him skiing, and he called his wife, and she's like, as he answers, he just immediately hears a baby crying.
Screaming.
And she's like, "What do you do?" He's like, "What's going on?" He's like, she goes, "I'm cleaning puke off the ceiling," which is such a specific. And then he's like embarrassed to say what he did. And they're like, "What did you do?" And he goes, "I went to this hill." He wouldn't say he went ski. He went to this hill. So I would not ask for that. However, I think it's such a balance, Heather, of like you don't want to be the golf widow, right? Like who's just like, you're like, I'll get my time with the boys, and on Saturday I'm out for 8 hours or whatever it may be. You don't want to be that, but you do also have to encourage them, whether it's, going out to having a drink or getting in a fantasy football league or anything. That's one of those things that, like, fantasy football is a good example of like how people like are getting together and watching a game. People are like, oh, all you do is, you're just watching the game and you care about you. That is guys connecting. That's in the same way that my wife has her groups. She has, a moms that she regularly will go get coffee with and connect with. And she's very good and very intentional about that. That is that for a lot of guys. So I think that sometimes you might just have to, like, I can just say as a guy, what I like about something like going together and watching the game is the community aspect of this. Is that this is me and my friends spending quality time together doing something that we love. So that old trope of just like guys getting together watching the games, I mean, that might be what we need sometimes. Not all the time. Now, the problem is there's always games on. So you might have to choose, like, what are your favorite teams? Okay? Because I don't know if we need to watch this random Tuesday baseball game in May because the playoffs aren't till October. This isn't sustainable. But I do think in the same way, I think of it like my priority of relationships are, me and my wife, and then me and my kids. And then if there is leftover on that time, then yeah, that's who I should go spend some time with, is a friend who fills me up, even if it's just a phone call in the car while I'm driving somewhere for 30 minutes, just to connect with another human being. But I can't do that at the neglect of the other four that really need me. And that's, I think, the tension, right?
Yeah.
At least for some relationships.
Or like, and I don't know if you feel like you need permission to like, hey, we're good. Like, you've connected with us, you've met our needs. Like,
yeah. And I think my instance, my personally a relationship, I would want that. I think I would want my wife to initiate that. So yes.
So maybe even a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that because you might be scared to ask or feel like it's offensive to ask. How dare you want to go spend time with somebody else, So I think to your initial question, which I meandered and didn't give a straight answer to, yeah, I mean, I think that if you sense that in your partner, that that's what they need and that would be good for them, then by all means initiate, But don't try and hook us up with certain friends. Let us choose the friends, even if they are terrible friends. We're very loyal. We're very loyal to bad friends.
Like, I'm just picturing like a date where like two moms have gotten together and matched up their husbands, and like, so bad.
Yeah.
Not good. Not a good plan.
That's why when the couple friend can happen, it's so hard to connect because you really have to be able to connect each way.
It's hard.
Everybody has to like each other. And that's a lot of connections because as like an introvert, I don't like 3 people at any party usually. So for me to like my wife and it's tough. So couple friends, we just had a couple friend move and we're like, no, how dare you?
That's not allowed.
We've all been, Heather, you've been in those scenarios, right? Where you're like, I like her, but I hate him.
Can't stand him.
I hate it. I can't stand him.
Yeah.
I love him, but I cannot stand her.
Yeah. Yeah. We sit down and we're like, okay, we've had some date nights where it's just the two of us. How about we ask another couple? And we're like going through the list. And now everyone's listening, going like, oh, we never get a call from, well, Heather and Bruce. Yeah. Shoot. But no, it's real, and that's a gift. Can you believe we're already halfway through 2024? And I know Cynthia and I talked with you at the beginning of the year of different goals we had. And how have you done on that? I don't even want to reveal how I've done. But there are some wins, and maybe you have some wins as well, and we need to celebrate those. But maybe one of your goals that could be a little bit more achievable is to pursue therapy that you have been wanting to do. I know for me, therapy helped me get unstuck. It helped bring perspective in a really hard season where anxiety was cutting me out at the knees and I could not be the kind of mom I wanted to be. And if you're in a season where you just need some perspective, or maybe you need someone to help you set some good boundaries or learn some better coping skills, be the best version of yourself. If you've ever thought of starting therapy, a great option, especially for moms, is BetterHelp because it's entirely online. So it is convenient with your schedule. Maybe you schedule a time with a therapist during your kids' nap time or before they wake up if they sleep in, like mine are sleeping in right now, the teenagers in the summer. It's flexible and it's suited to your schedule, like I said. And all you have to do is fill out a quick questionnaire. You get matched with a licensed therapist. And if it's not a match, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So take a moment for yourself, moms. Visit betterhelp.com/DMA today. Get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp, HELP.com/DMA. It's summer, and officially I am in Dallas and not having to put on a full face of makeup every day. Let's celebrate, y'all. But I did wake up. I put on my sunscreen foundation and my Thrive Cosmetics mascara. It is my go-to. And I've talked to you before about how Thrive Cosmetics is this unicorn brand because the products work really well. They're high performing. They're certified 100% vegan, cruelty-free, zero parabens, sulfates, phthalates. So they're clean and they give back. For every product purchased, Thrive Cosmetics donates products and funds to help communities thrive. So what are some of my other products that I've been using lately? Well, one is a brilliant eye brightener. I put it in the corners of my eyelids to kind of open up and highlight my eyes. And it's so easy to put on. It's almost like a little crayon or pencil that's it kind of allows my eyelid to brighten. And you can choose 16 different shades to play around with and to use as much or as little as you want. A little light shade is Stella. You put that in, like I said, corner of my eye to give you a little glow, open your eye. You can have a metallic shade, or maybe if you're going out this summer, a little smoky eye. You can blend in with your finger. So many great options with Thrive Cosmetics. Refresh your everyday look with Thrive Cosmetics. It's luxury beauty that gives back. And right now you can get an exclusive 10% off your first order at thrivecosmetics.com/DMA. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/DMA for 10% off your first order. Do you have family friends like where you're like, this is another thing because we have 4 boys, so it's real rare that anyone wants our 4 boys over for any meal or any situation where we could break something. It's
could break something, will break something. It's a given.
It's a given.
You put 4 boys in a home, at least one room's going to get like a remodel.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't even notice we had my husband's cousin was over and he looks at this bowl of fake fruit, which I think my mom must have put it there. I don't remember putting a bowl of fake fruit. And there were bites in every single pear. And I never noticed it. So he took a picture and like later he's doing a show and he shows the picture of our pears. And he goes, if you have a bowl of fake fruit and there aren't bites in it, I question your parenting. Like that your kids should be that curious and not just one, maybe the next one's real, you know?
You know how sometimes they surround real fruit with fake fruit? You know how that's a thing?
Yeah.
You know, it's like a fun little little surprise bag. Oh no.
This one's fake.
That's so funny. Yeah.
It's real. So do you have family friends?
We do. But even that makes it even a harder connection.
Yeah.
Because for everyone to like each other, now down to the kids. I mean, it's a unicorn of a family. And then for them to live close and be on the same schedule as you, it's nearly impossible, you know. And then you feel like right when you get one, they move or whatever. So we've had a couple over the years, but anytime there's a family hangout like that, I still always feel like at least 20% of the group is unhappy with the hang. But that's a lot of family life of just like, hey, if 80% of if the
Yeah.
group is
Those are
happy,
some
then
odds I can live with. Yeah. Yeah.
this is not a democracy.
Yeah. Do you ever go on trips with other families?
We have once, and it was very fun. But it was like, again, it was just like a miracle that it all worked out and kind of happened. What about you guys? Do you guys?
We have in the past. Yeah. But I was so resistant for a really long time because it like
Yeah.
overwhelmed me. It overwhelmed me to imagine that working out. And like, how I think honestly it's a lot of why I like Don't Mom Alone. It's because I isolated for so long because I didn't want people to see how messy my kids were, like how
Mm,
like they were just wild. And a trip, you cannot hide your conflicts.
mm,
You can't hide that you and your spouse may have a disagreement, or you and your kids all fight with each other. Like it's
yeah.
all out there. So these have to be people that you're willing to like all the underbellies out and about.
Yeah, I mean that is absolutely true, and that was hard for us because we have some wilds as well, and particular family hangs because now it's not just look at my kids, they're wild. It's the judgment of your family.
Yeah, that's real.
You know how family is.
Oh yeah, so loving and embracing of all the things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then you might get a tip, which always welcomed. Always
How do
welcomed
you
a
handle
tip
those tips? How do you handle that?
politely and diplomatically,
Sure.
and then I leave and curse their name,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering, is like, does God still curse people down? Because I feel like He should for that. That feels like
First.
this is like a real Elisha and the she bears moment type. That's a very deep Bible reference.
That was good. My people appreciate that. Yeah, no, I think that if I was you and I was a comedian, I would like say something sarcastic, but that's nice that you're diplomatic and kind.
I'm very diplomatic, and then that's a little bit because I don't love conflict, and Melissa hates it even more. And
Ah.
so you're like, let's just set this out. And then Mel and I have like a regular hike that we do in San Diego. And that's where we air out all our grievances. And we're just like, this mountain has heard just everything, everything terrible with every relationship in our life. We fought on it before, which a hike fight is a terrible hike, by the way, and a terrible fight. But we've every family member has come up on there, every relationship, every friend, every struggle. We're just up there, and then anytime the phone rings, we get triggered that it's one of the schools, that someone's sick,
Yeah.
or someone wants to opt out of state testing or whatever it may be.
All the calls.
All the
Your
calls.
child just did X, Y, and Z. This is yeah. Yeah. I've
Your
gotten
kid
all the
got kicked
calls.
out of culinary.
Yeah.
That one, that's a real one for
That's a
us because
real
she
one.
stole cupcakes.
Oh, they stole cupcakes.
She has ADHD. It's a compulsive issue.
Oh yeah, we've got those too. Yeah.
Yeah. Say, I'm literally fidgeting with an orange. It runs in the
It's
family.
genetic for sure. Yeah, I think the school is like those McFaddians. I don't know. I don't know. There's another one coming up. Oh gosh, here we go. Gird your
we
loins.
actually had the opposite, and then our oldest, he's our one neurotypical. He's a natural great student. He's our firstborn and has all of that. So he just blew through that ASB just like, wow. And then here come the girls. And they're a wonderful girl. I love them to death. And they have they're like singers, they're more
Yeah.
artists. They're also both have ADHD. One's got some other stuff in there too. I'm not here to air her diagnoses, but I think they were like, well, this is not what the boy was.
Yeah.
These Nickersons, they produce different types of children.
Oh yeah. I mean, people are amazed that I have 4 different types of boys. Like we want to say the boy and the
Yeah.
girls. They expect the boys to be the wild ones that have ADHD and not the girls. And it's like, okay, there's lots of versions of people. I've met them.
Yeah. And exactly. And they just, what it is they just have different strengths, right? And
Yeah.
the old quote of your greatest strengths, your greatest liabilities, they go hand in hand. So,
Yeah.
as we say in the Nickerson household all the time, we are a very passionate family, which is code for, there's some fighting, there's some opinions shared, there's plenty of emotions going around.
Spicy, not sweet. Okay. A little bit spicy. A little spicy over
We're
here.
not a sweet family. we're not a kind family. We're not mean. I don't mean that in like we're all a-holes. I don't mean
No,
it like that.
no, just a lot of
But
energy, a lot of like passion.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've said that about Mel. Mel is not sweet, and I don't want her to be. I don't need that. I have a mean wife, and I love it.
Love it.
Because I know Mel has never told a lie in her entire life. I know exactly how she feels at all times. Like, she's very passionate. There's no guessing.
No.
It's she's a very easy sign to read in that regard. But there's that it's a TikTok song, but the Hosier song, I'd rather take my whiskey neat, my coffee in bed at 3 a.m. or in bed at 3. You're too sweet for me. That's what he's singing about a girl. That's how I feel. I
Yeah.
want the strong.
You want the strong stuff. Give it to me straight. Don't try to tell me what you think I want to hear.
No, I always tell Mel that she's a roller coaster, but I'm tall enough to ride the ride.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like that. Well, and you wrote a whole book on how to
I
be
did,
married
yeah.
to Mel. So, or Melissa is how it is.
Yeah, Mel's fine too. Yeah.
So any before we have to go, any tips if there is a dad who the wife made him listen to this episode? Any tips for him and married life? We talked about men and relationships and friendships, but the insights of a comedian are always good.
I would say just go to your wife and say, listen to this podcast. And he said, I needed to golf more. I needed to watch more games with the boys.
Yeah.
And I needed to join more fantasy football leagues.
This is it. Yeah. This is good.
That was the big takeaway from here.
Yeah.
No. It's I oftentimes really struggle giving advice because advice is so particular for everybody's situation, right? And I'm the first to admit I have an incredibly unique situation. But I know the more I have connected with other men, the more I have valued my relationship with my wife and children. And not that I just like her so much more than my male friends, though that is true. But perspective is good, and connecting with other humans is good. And there are just certain things that you can tell your friend that you wouldn't tell your wife. Not that you're keeping secrets, but there's certain, what it is sometimes as a guy, you have certain interests and hobbies and things that you're passionate about. And if your partner doesn't carry those things, then they just kind of die. And then part of you dies because you're like, no, I really like this thing.
Yeah.
Whatever your thing is, for me, comedy or sports or professional wrestling, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If that's a thing that you're passionate about, and then you have a partner who doesn't share that, then it just kind of dies. And you're like, oh, well, it almost makes you kind of devalue yourself, devalue the things that you think are interesting and important. So, fostering those relationships with other men and other dads are increasingly valuable. And to just sometimes, we have a guy, John, that I see every day at pickup, and just even the 10 minutes that we get of complaining about the teacher, and it just makes you feel human. Or every once in a while to go there and see his kid throw a fit is just so valuable. And just to see him frustrated and be like, okay, I'm not alone. I'm going through this the same way that he is as well. And if we can connect with this, it's going to be better for us, and it's certainly going to be better for our children and our partners as well.
It's good. Well, we appreciate you. Thank you for making us laugh. Thank you for being part of the clean comedy movement. I don't know. Do you claim that, the clean comedy thing?
Oh yeah. I'm a clean comic. Yeah. I'm in that regard. Yeah.
You have to be a lot more clever, is what I've learned. We made the mistake of going, what's it called? Second City in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
So we went to a great show, but then they're like, stay afterwards for a comedian. And we're like, sure, free show. No, ma'am. It was no bueno. And I can't even say on the podcast what this person just kept repeating as the joke. And I'm like, it's just a cuss word over and over again. I don't understand how this is funny. But to be clean and funny, I feel like you have to be a little more witty and clever. I'm just saying.
I think anything that makes you edit is good.
Yeah.
You know that as a communicator and a
Yeah.
writer,
Yeah.
anything that makes you, and so clean is that for some people, and even the best comedians in the world who aren't clean, they're still editors.
Yeah.
There's still people that just like dig a little deeper to find a more interesting, creative way to say this than their first like visceral instinct.
Yeah. To connect. You're a connector. You're connecting
Yes,
human
that's the whole goal.
experience. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we appreciate you. Y'all go listen to the podcast. Don't make me go back there. And congrats on all the good things happening in your life right now and your son's birthday. It's very exciting.
Thanks, Heather. I appreciate that. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Father's Day to you. Back at you. Back and forth.
Yeah.
All right. Good to talk with you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, y'all. Thanks for joining me and Dustin. And if you've never checked out Dustin's work, you definitely should. It's great, clean comedy. And if you're in Dallas, he'll be in Addison. I think it's late August, early September at the Addison Improv. We put a link in the show notes. I'm going to try to get to a show, so I hope I get to see you there. And just a great reminder as moms of our role in helping our husbands get that permission to make time for themselves and for us to, with that work-life balance situation, which is there such a thing as balance? No. But have we swung one way too far? And I think summer is such a good way to be intentional to see people. We've gotten to go to dinner with friends this week. And then my husband went to go watch the Mavs game with one of my sons and some other guys and their sons last night. And we're going to hang out with friends on Saturday. It's just like a great time to maybe be intentional and foster and nourish those relationships in your life. So I hope this encouraged you to do that. I'm going to pray over us. Lord, I thank you for humor. I thank you for laughter. I thank you for the way you created families. I know not every family has a mother and a father, but I thank you, Lord, that structure you created is for a purpose. And I pray that we would honor the men in our lives who are helping support our mothering, who help us not mom alone, and that we would speak life over them. I pray, Lord, that you would, again, like I prayed on Friday, just comfort our hearts if the subject of fathers brings up a lot of heartache and sadness and disappointment, that you would be our ever-present comfort and help. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, I'll be back here next Monday. I'm trying to think of who is coming on the show. I think it is our surprise guest that I surprised Cynthia with. Funny story, on Friday when I mentioned that we did a surprise guest, one of the listeners thought it was the bobblehead. The Bob Ross bobblehead was the surprise guest. No, that was Tony Collier. And so on Monday, we have another surprise guest that we recorded with. And so it was great. It was a great episode. It was kind of long, but it was really good. So join me back here on Monday. Have a great week. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Don't Mom Alone podcast. If you're wanting to connect with more people and more resources to help remind you that you're not alone, head over to don'tmomalone.com. That's where you'll also find show notes with any links mentioned by our guests. Most importantly, I want you to know the good news, the great news that you're not alone because God has promised to always be with you. With faith in Jesus Christ, the one who died for you and rose again, Jesus said when he left, he was going to leave a helper, a comforter, to be with us. God in us. Moms, that's superpower. So while you're washing dishes at your kitchen sink, while you're driving to and from work, while you're feeding that baby late into the night, while you're cleaning sticky floors, God promises to be just as present with you as when you're worshiping in a church pew. As it says in Zephaniah 3:17, the Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He takes great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love, and he will rejoice over you with singing. Now that's good news. Have a great day.